everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the PokerNews Podcast. We have a very exciting episode for you guys today. We are dropping all kinds of bombs. We've got Jared Jaffee. We did, in fact, have the PokerNews debate yesterday, which you guys, I highly suggest checking out if you missed it. The topic is Phil Hellmuth only good against bad players? That was a pretty fun little ditty. Of course, as we are about to watch tonight, you guys will probably not hear this until tomorrow, let's be honest. But tonight you will all be no doubt glued to your TVs as we watch Daniel Negreanu and Phil Hellmuth battle it out. Jeff, you're really busy right now because you have to go somewhere. So what's going on in your life?
Well, it's I have a DexaFit body scan, weight loss, body fat percentage, stupid bet. So I have to get to that appointment, and that consists of my busyness that you referenced. But you said it is Wednesday, March 31st at the time of taping this podcast, and Daniel Negreanu takes on Phil Hellmuth. It's high stakes duel 2, fired up about that. Like you said, Sarah, I mean, there's no reason for us to talk about it that much because most people listening will already have found out the results. But I'm very, very hyped about that Negreanu-Hellmuth matchup.
Whoever made a body fat bet with you is clearly not a good bettor. Like, I don't know what the man, that's super dumb. Anyways, we won't get too much into those details, as I'm sure the PokerNews Podcast audience can imagine you as like a chubby guy somewhere who would be smart to make this bet against. So Chad, let's talk about what you've been doing the last week. I thought you were busy working, like covering for this poor guy who like bailed out on you, but then turns out you're mostly just playing, right?
Well, yeah, I was supposed to work the MSPT Riverside in Iowa. I got the opportunity to play it thanks to our colleague Mo Nuara came to do the live update. So I said, why not fire away here? And fire away I did. I ended up sinking 4 bullets into the tournament. Yeah, it ended up being a record-breaking tournament, 816 runners, I believe it was. It beat the previous Iowa State record of 518 entries, I believe. So a huge turnout. Just another example of the hunger that exists out there for live tournament poker right now. It was a great event, a lot of fun. Like I said, 4 bullets in was a lot more than I like to go, but in a tournament like that, I said, why not? Fortunately, the 4th time was the charm. I did find a bag, and on day 2 made a fairly deep run, ending up 27th place for like $4,800. So actually turned a little profit, which was nice. And just to, get a cash and go deep was fun. It's been a while since I've kind of been in that position. So I certainly enjoyed it. And then on day 1B, late in the evening, I had the opportunity to play with somebody I wasn't excited to play with, but it turned out to be an interesting experience. If you recall, months ago, we talked about on the podcast here the Midway Poker Tour and what a disaster that was because of the silver shortage, payout debacle, and players are still owed tens of thousands of dollars. And Dan Bekavac, who is associated with the tour, promised to play players back, never did, and has since ghosted players. And he actually showed up to an MSPT event last month, and I was expecting him to be at this one, and sure enough, he was. And when I got seated, somebody said, oh, you just took Bekavac's seat. He had just busted, and I was sitting down in his seat, which was a little bit, ironic, seeing as I've done all the stories on Poker News about him. Well, the story got even more interesting as he must have went and re-entered the tournament, and before too long, got sat in the 1 seat at that same table when I was sitting over in the 9 seat. So the dealer in between us, and it was kind of just one of those awkward situations. There's a lot of history and certainly no love lost, but I decided, you know what, Poker News is here in an official capacity, doing the updates. I don't want to make a scene. I don't want to be unprofessional. I'm playing poker. I'm going to sit here and play poker. I'm not going to say anything unless perchance he says anything to me. Eventually, he couldn't help himself. He made a little comment, not directly to me, but to somebody near the table. And he said, why don't you ask Chad Holloway down there? And I said, Dan, I was wondering if you were going to say anything to me. And we kind of bickered back and forth a little bit. I had doubled up through him in in a hand that I tweeted about, where I had a set and he called me pretty much drawing stone dead. I think it was a spike call. And, I said, oh, it felt pretty good to double up in that hand. And then he's like, fuck you, Chad. And, he hates me because of the articles and the spotlight that I shine and continue to shine on that whole situation. But he ended up busting. Those chips that he gave me helped me go on to finish in 27th place. So, yeah, it was an interesting kind of feud there, I suppose.
And no discussion about the actual Midway Poker Tour. He didn't bring up specifics.
No, he won't talk about it. In fact, there was a player there that is owed money, Joseph Paris. I think he finished in third and is still owed money. And he went up to Bekavac in the casino. And Bekavac hires like a bodyguard or a friend or somebody to accompany him around to, protect him or sort through the riffraff or whatever it might be. But I understand Joseph Paris went up to him and it was trying to ask about the money. Where's my money? What's going on? What's the situation? And Bekavac just called for security, casino security to come protect him. It's that's what makes this so kind of terrible. You don't see like a Mike Postle going to the casino and still trying to play and being nonchalant about it. But Bekavac is, after he's promised to play back players, he hasn't addressed it. The audacity and gall that he does showing up to these events in the same region of where, the Midway Poker Tour operated and the whole debacle took place. It's just a lot of players find it very disrespectful, myself included. And until he addresses it, until he makes players, whole, I think he's just going to be a villain in the poker world.
So he said, fuck you, Chad, first of all, which leads to the obvious next question. Who would win in a fight?
I'm not much of a fighter, I don't think. And I don't think he probably is either. I'm sure his bodyguard would jump in there or something. Who knows? And you know what? I thought about saying a few things, especially after he busted. It was an opportunity for me to get a jab in or to rub some salt in the wound, but it's just not me. My dad always taught me growing up, just be the bigger man, take the higher road. And so that's what I did. He busted, he left the table, and it is what it is. So I'm sure we'll continue to see him at some events throughout the Midwest or what have you. A lot of people think that these casinos or the tours should bar him. I understand why people would think that, but I also don't think it's the tour's responsibility, nor would they have the power. These infractions didn't occur on the MSPT. They didn't occur at this casino or the casinos he's been going to. And so it's hard for them to kind of play the judge, jury, and executioner there. And, poker has always been a game where if you can put up the buy-in, you can get a seat in the game. And we've seen that with other nefarious figures in the poker world. Howard Lederer has come back to the World Series of Poker, Chris Ferguson, and many others throughout the years. So it's a fine line. I think it would be cool if the TDA or an organization like the TDA once stepped up and kind of had this process where maybe people can review other players or submit complaints, and then they give them a recommendation or grade, that other casinos and tours can reference and say, hey, we don't want this player at our tour or on our stop or at this casino because of X, Y, and Z as laid out by such and such organization.
But you're right. That gets into some particularly, like with the cancel culture world that we live in now, I definitely think while I can understand why this would feel necessary and in this kind of situation would make sense, I think it would be like a tightrope to be walking for people to be like the deciding factor of who gets to play and not play.
Right. And where do you draw the line, right? So there's probably in any given poker tournament with hundreds of players, imagine the criminal records of some of those players that we're not privy to. Maybe someone's a murderer or somebody's a, sex offender or what have you. Like, where do you draw the line? That's why, poker is the great equalizer. Like I said, if you've got the money to put up, you get a seat in the game. So
maybe they just brought brass knuckles on the airplane. You know what I mean? Like, it could be a lot of things. Who knows? Well, does it make you feel really good about yourself when you get to go back to the MSPT and then fire 4 bullets like a boss when you're, you used to kind of work at the MSPT and now you just get to go in with all your money and throw it around?
I mean, it was not fun to fire 4 bullets because then you've got to finish in the top 27 to essentially break even. But it was fun to go and compete and to play against some of the players I used to report on. And this was only my second MSPT cash ever. The first was way back in 2013. And then because, I worked for them for so long, and then I also just have bricked many tournaments that I have played with the MSPT. It felt good to get the monkey off the back, so to speak, and to really just have a confidence booster. After playing the WPT Venetian and coming close to making the money, it was a little disheartening. And so to come back and actually get a cash under my belt felt good. And who knows, we'll see. I hope to play a little bit more in 2021 and see if I can't do something. I've been working on my game. The game is so much different now than it was when I won, the World Series of Poker bracelet back in 2013 by quite a margin. And
Right.
well, for many years there, I was playing that same old game and was just stagnant, and realized that if I was going to have success again in poker, really have to adapt, really have to learn some new things. And I'm not diving into game theory optimal or solvers like some of the high roller guys do that Jeff interacts with quite frequently, but I'm trying to at least understand it more and get a grasp of it. So I have those concepts in my head and can pull a little bit out of it. And that seems to be pretty effective in the kind of stakes and tournaments and games that I've been playing.
We'll leave the solver work to Sarah. As far as this podcast trio is concerned, she's been running the
Don't worry. I will coach you, Chad, for a very, very small piece of the action. Okay, well, we have some really exciting news in regards to Chris Moneymaker. I think this is going to sort of shake the poker world, as we are obviously all fans, and so many of us even came into this industry as a result of the Moneymaker boom. But before we get into that story, I just quickly want to get to a quick word from our sponsors, Elite Chip Care.
Chips dirty and unsanitary? Elite Chip Care's ultrasonic cleaners kill bacteria and pathogens without using chemicals. Protect your team from potentially hazardous chemicals, UV, and gases. For daily sanitizing of your chips, our laboratory oven will eradicate most viruses using only heat. Up to 2,500 chips sanitized in just 3 minutes. Avoid the reoccurring expense of costly chemicals, UV bulbs, and gases. Safe, inexpensive, and sustainable. Visit EliteChipCare.com.
All right, so big news heading into the new month. It's April, it's here, and this was quite shocking news for me. Chris Moneymaker has been making headlines as of late. He has got a new sponsorship after he left PokerStars, and now he's kind of coming clean with the poker community. A lot of people did not expect what he had to say today, and we're just going to share it with you. Here's what Chris Moneymaker had to say.
Hey guys, Chris here. I wrote a book a long time ago, how an amateur turned $40 into $2.5 million. And it sort of started, I made a mistake on the buy-in, and I wasn't really sure, but I came to find out it was $86 about 10 years later. Honest mistake, but it happened. I put it in print, whatever. I'm here today because the statute of limitations has run out, and I think it's time just to get it off my chest. A lot of people have been calling me Chris Moneymaker for years. That's because I had a fake ID that I used to go drinking with Chris Moneymaker back in the day, and I showed that when I went on ESPN, and they kind of ran with it, and I thought it was cool, so I just let it go. I was actually born Chris Smith. It just doesn't have the same pizzazz. So a lot of my 20 years, I've been just going as Moneymaker. It's been a pretty cool ride. I don't know if Chris Smith would have been as cool, but I'm here to sort of let all the skeletons out of the closet, if you will. And, I kind of feel bad about it, but at the same time, I mean, it took care of my family and, gave me a nice career. So I'm sorry that anybody that feels betrayed, but you can still call me Moneymaker. It's fine. I'm still going to try and, go with the name. But I want Smith to be out there so people understand that that's my given name, and I'm proud of it.
All right. Well, there you have it, guys. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but Mr. Chris Smith, I guess. I guess that's what we will refer to him as from now on. Chris Smith, 2003 World Series of Poker main event champ.
Lying to us this whole entire time for 18 years now? 18 years of lies, of deceit, of dishonor.
And I knew that name was too good to be true. Do you know what I mean? Like when I first heard like his name's Chris Moneymaker, I was like, get the hell out of here. It is not. And I was right.
Forget his bluff against Sammy Farha. He just bluffed us all for 18 years.
For 18 years. And I guess, I don't know, really now, he waits until now. So also probably PokerStars is partially to blame in this spot too. If, you know, it just, the whole scenario is just.
They
really
had to have
up.
known.
Yeah. Like they've got contracts and stuff, right?
Well, you know, WSOP there's lots of rumors happening right now, and I'm pretty confident in the next episode or in the coming episodes, we're going to have a lot to talk about. Can't really say more than that at this time, but there was some WSOP news. WSOP.com circuit online series just had wrapped up their latest stop. It was the Silver Legacy circuit series. Jared Jaffee, one of the reasons he's on the show as the guest this week is because he won the first event of that series. We talked about it in last week's episode, which is kind of the reason we're like, hey, we've been talking about Jared Jaffee a lot. Let's just get him on the episode. We'll have that interview here shortly. But some of the big winners in the Silver Legacy main event, Joseph Cheong wrapped it up by taking down the $1,000 high roller for $51,000. Gene Nicholas, who I know nothing about, it was his first ever cash, took down the $525 main event for almost $59,000. Daniel Busgen out of New Jersey captured yet another ring. It's his third in 2 months. He took 2 rings down during the Planet Hollywood online circuit last month, brings his total up to 7 rings. Ross Gottlieb, Drew O'Connell, Daniel Chan. These are just some of the guys who captured rings. All of them now eligible to play in the season-ending $250K guaranteed championship event that will be held on WSOP.com in December. And right around the corner, another circuit is starting up. They're going to have one each month. This is going to be the Spring Online Super Circuit, April 10th through the 27th. 18 rings will be awarded, 1.75 million in guarantees, and that's open to players in New Jersey and Nevada. So maybe, Jeff, you're going to fire up, maybe try a little bit while you're there in Vegas?
Yeah, I think I have to. I played 3 events last week, 1 cash. The aforementioned Drew O'Connell just absolutely owned my soul. So it was good to see him get a ring. You said it in your list of names. There's like a group of stone cold killers on WSOP.com, and Daniel Busgen is one of them. Ari Engel, certainly one of them, I believe. Ian Steinman was up there for player of the series. There's a select group of 10 or 15 guys, Darren Rabinowitz. And then, of course, Jared Jaffee. Like, I feel like we discuss that specific group of names every single time we review a circuit series on WSOP.
So we're just going to be talking about this for like 100 years, guys. An event every month, blah, blah, blah. The same like 10 people rising to the surface, because we know Jeff doesn't want to do really well on WSOP.com because he wants to save it for GGPoker.
Yep.
I totally get. But I was really surprised to see in our outline for today that Element is back in the mix, buying the World Poker Tour. Speaking of being bamboozled like 800 times about what's actually going on, Jeff, what is going on?
So I want to say 6 months ago, we discussed on this podcast Allied selling the World Poker Tour to Element. That Element had an agreement to, long story short, effectively buy the World Poker Tour for about $78 million. 3 weeks later, Bally's comes in the mix, not Bally's, the hotel that's owned by Caesars, but Bally's Corporation comes into the mix, and they say, you know what? How does $90 million sound? And I guess that deal with Element and Allied wasn't done. Allied said, you know what? It sounds a lot better than $78 million. You got a deal, Bally's. You got a deal. And just yesterday, Element comes back and they say, you know what? I know we offered 78. I know Bally's gave you 90. I know you had an agreement with them. How about we go up to $105 million? And the WPT said, you know what? This sounds better than 90, which sounded better than 78. And so Allied Esports Entertainment and Element Partners have a new stock purchase agreement that increases the overall purchase price of the World Poker Tour to $105 million. It says in the press release that the board of directors determined that the Bally's proposal did not constitute a superior proposal to the Element proposal, because it looks like that Bally's came in at the last second and they were like, you know what, we'll also offer $105 million. And Allied chose to go with Element. I think we might be done. It says the transaction is expected to close in late April, but we said that the last time.
You know what this reminds me of? Last week, I had to sell my mom's car, right? And I posted it. It was an old beater. The transmission was out. So I posted it online for $700 or best offer.
Okay.
I get a guy, he messages me, says, I'll offer you $500 for it. I said, the best offer I've got on the table right now is $550. So the guy says, all right, I'll give you $600. And I sold it to him for $600. But you know what? There was no or best offer. There was never anybody who offered me $550 for it. I just said that so I could drive up the price a little bit. Not saying that's what happened here, but it certainly just seems like one of those kind of maybe, how do we bump up the selling price a little bit? I don't know, but back and forth, flip flop, as Michael Scott says in The Office, snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. I just hope this whole thing's done and the sale goes through.
Yeah, they bumped it up by $27 million somehow, some way. They found a way. And in the end, they had two companies offering $105 million when a month and a half ago, they had a deal to sell it for $78 million. So I guess props.
My question is just, why doesn't this happen behind closed doors? Why are we receiving these announcements? Like, I totally get what Chad did. That's a private moment that happened between two people. And if there was another offer, that could also happen between those people. I'm just having a hard time understanding why this negotiating has to involve all of the poker media.
Maybe it's just to get it out there. So does anybody else want to throw out a superior offer? Maybe 110 million, 115. I don't know, but I agree with you, Sarah. It seems like these are the sort of things that should be done behind closed doors. Yeah,
I'm with you. All right. Well, we've got a lot of stories to cover. And to be honest with you, we're probably not even going to get to all of them if I know what is what. But just like Jeff, I was shocked to see that we have a winner from the EPT Sochi main event. I had no idea that we were doing EPTs anymore for a long time. And I certainly did not hear that EPT Sochi was going down. So I was pretty surprised. The name, of course, is someone that we'll recognize in Artur Martirosian, who's going to take home $325,000. Now, Chad, I know you're the head of live reporting in the United States. Did you know that there was an EPT going on?
I mean, I had heard little things that there was a main event happening. The buy-in in the U.S. was approximately $2,300 USD. And it got 852 runners.
Wow.
And so it was a pretty big tournament, but not a lot of fanfare. And I don't know if that was on purpose. Maybe the officials over there in Russia, or they didn't want to draw the attention of officials, or I don't know. Sometimes there's reasons that they do not get the word out more. And in this case, there were no live updates. There was just rather some Twitter, social media chatter. But it was a pretty good turnout. In $2,300 buy-in ends up winning it for $325,000. Not a bad payday. And it was really a localized field. There are travel restrictions, so you don't see the usual EPT regulars traveling. This was a final table comprised of mainly Russians, one player from Turkey and another from Serbia. So it definitely slipped under the radar, and just not big fanfare for the return of the EPT.
Yeah, no idea. Absolutely no idea it was running. But with that said, not surprised to see Artur Martirosian's name on top of the leaderboard. The guy's a crusher.
And speaking of names that we are not surprised to see ever at the top of any leaderboard, Adrian Mateos clinched his first Super Millions title for just shy of $500,000. Adrian Mateos is someone we see at the top of basically all. It doesn't matter if it's a large field, medium-sized buy-in. It doesn't matter if it's a high roller. Adrian Mateos is just quietly and adorably crushing these events. And at such a tender little age, I don't even know what this kid is doing, but a huge congratulations to him. Anything to add on this event?
I mean, I think you said it in that you can make an argument that Mateos is the most versatile tournament player in the game. Big field, small field, big buy-in, low buy-in. This was another Super Millions win, his first Super Millions win, like you said, more than $428,000. And like all of these, just a stacked final table. Alexei Boyka finished in second. Art Papazian, David Coleman, João Vieira, Sam Greenwood, Yuri Zivalevsky. I mean, these are always stacked fields. So I'm sure a win in the Super Millions really means a lot to these guys.
So sticking with the theme of GG, before we give you a little ad from Kevin Martin on GG Cares, GG announced their spring festival, which zinger, wait for it, is basically running alongside Scoop. Like, ooh, things are getting so juicy in the poker world. But it's got $150 million guaranteed and is featuring deadmau5.
Yeah, how about that? Bringing in deadmau5. So Scoop announces their schedule last week. They say $100 million guaranteed throughout the course of the series. It's going to be massive. It's going to be great. And here comes GG. Hey, how about the GG Spring Festival? Pretty much the exact same dates. We're going to have an opening stage week, a headliner stage week, and a main stage week. Oh, and by the way, we're going to guarantee $150 million throughout the course of the festival. Oh, and also, by the way, we're going to bring in one of the biggest DJs, if not the biggest DJ in the world in deadmau5. So I'm curious to see how that partnership works out. But I'm sure that was not a cheap one for our friends at GG.
Certainly not. And I think it's, it's, say what you want. People can think whatever they want, but these guys are clearly not afraid to experiment, explore, try new things, take on the competition, if you will. And I mean, Chad, let me ask you, what do you think this is going to do to and for Scoop, if anything?
For Scoop?
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is like the first time Scoop has really ever had like major competition?
Oh, I gotcha. I was confused there. I was Googling who deadmau5 was, to be honest.
Fucking love you.
But apparently his real name is Joel Thomas Zimmerman, and he's older than me. So I guess I was thinking like this was
been around a minute,
kid.
Chad.
Yeah, 40 years old. Anyways, what's it going to do for Scoop? Yeah, it'll be interesting. This time of year, as we mentioned in the last broadcast, when the Scoop schedule was announced, that's usually a lead-in for the World Series of Poker. We're not going to see that live version of the WSOP at least this summer. And so these online spring events, I think, are going to be quite huge. And yeah, I don't think that PokerStars is going to have kind of that monopoly, if you will. I think that this GG Poker Spring Series is going to be a hit, and it's going to give players an opportunity to play a full slate of events across both sites if they so choose, and is even more incentive for some players, maybe a lot of the American pros, to get out of the country so that they can fire both. So I think it's kind of a win-win in that regard, and that we might see some US pros who might not normally travel out for just one series or the other, but given that there will be two that they can enjoy, that's some good incentive in my opinion.
And how about 3? Because Party Poker didn't want to be left out and announced Power Fest for April 9th through the 27th. Just another huge series. I think this kind of competition is very, very healthy in the online world. I wouldn't quite like it live if there was a 1600 at the Venetian this weekend and a 1600 WSOPC event in LA, and there was something on the East Coast and something in Florida all at the same time. But online, when players can be flexible, when they can fire multiple buy-ins across multiple platforms, I kind of like it, and I'm curious to see how well these sites do in April.
Okay, so I know you're obviously going to be a little bit biased, Jeff, since you have that big piece in GG.
Very much, yeah. Big ownership spot, big ambassador sponsorship. Yep.
I'm curious because we're basically seeing these 3 poker, powerhouses, if you will, going up against each other. And I did actually read a few things after Party announced, what they were doing. And I think, did they guarantee $1 million on Party?
For their main event, I think they guaranteed $1 million, yes.
$1 million. Something about the guarantee on the main, people were definitely throwing shade. And you know, I obviously it's our job on this podcast to cover important news stories, but I also think it's our job to, you know, discuss, speculate, share our opinions and analysis on things going on in the poker world. It seems to me very clear that that GG has shaken the poker landscape, if you will. And I would say last year, maybe the year before that, the entire poker community was just all about party poker. Party poker is giving these huge guarantees. Party poker is the place to play. It has, you know, better software. I think a lot of the overlays and things they were throwing out there were pretty enticing for poker players. And I saw a lot of shade against Party when they announced their schedule and their guarantees this time. And a lot of people basically saying, you know, GG is the new hot, you know, girl coming around the corner or whatever, if you would say that. Are we just fickle as the poker community? Have things really that dramatically changed? Is Party really doing less guarantees? Of course, there's also plenty of people who talk shit about GG too for whatever their like marketing strategies are. But Jeff, being as I think deeply entrenched in the poker world as you are, and also as part of the poker media, what's the buzz you're picking up?
Well, I just think it's so tough for a site like Party to compete. Of course, it's tough for them to compete with PokerStars, but then when you throw GG into the mix, I mean, GG's main event is a $1,500 buy-in and a $10 million guarantee. Well, one more time, a $10 million guarantee for a $1,500 buy-in online. So that's really tough for a smaller site like Party. And I think, Sarah, what also makes it tough on Party, they were in the limelight, the spotlight, whatever you want to call it, for their Millions Live events, which I think received so much praise from players. You said it. They were willing to be aggressive with their guarantees. They were willing to throw out some overlay money if they had to. I think the live element of all this really helped Party Poker, and then it really hurt Party Poker over this last year when they had to step back and they're a clear, third fiddle option. It's GG and PokerStars, and then it's just a big drop off before you hit anybody else. That's not a terrible thing. A lot of pros still like to play on Party. It's still a nice platform. It still draws plenty of people. It's just they're starting to get blown out of the water because there's only so much space in the online game, and GG really has just pounced, especially within this last year or two.
Well, there's a story which I think has like a clear transition here, an easy transition, and everyone knows I love hard transitions.
Yep.
But instead of going to that story, which I am going to get your opinion on here, Chad, I'm going to throw to a little shout out to our sponsors then, GG. You guys, we have lots of sponsors though, so we're not biased, by the way.
Kevin Martin from GGPoker here, and I just got to ask, have you heard about GG Care? Oh, you haven't? Well, guess what? It's the new daily promotion that rewards you for experiencing all the bad luck poker has to offer. You know, the bad beats, the coolers, the suckouts, they're so frustrating. We hate them so much, but they cannot be avoided. But now, if you experience a bad beat on GGPoker, GG Care has your back. You'll automatically be registered to play in the next daily $30,000 GG Care flip out tournament. Here's the best part. You don't even have to be online for these flip out tournaments. Yes, you still have a chance for cash to go right into your balance. So remember, next time you're on GGPoker and you take a bad beat, GG Care has your back. So if you have not joined the fastest online growing website, then make sure you join the GGPoker community and join me at the tables very soon.
So we wrapped up talking a little bit about GGPoker and really their, dominating presence at this point in the online space, which has happened very quickly. And I think something we had talked about a little bit, maybe 6-7 months ago, was the reality that more than likely the WSOP.com platform would eventually become a GGPoker platform, that there was some sort of it seemed like there was a relationship building as, clearly the WSOP was connected to what was happening overseas. But that being said, we just found out that the 888 and WSOP partnership has been extended until 2026. Now, Chad, as our resident WSOP guy, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was certainly in the camp that was speculating that GGPoker and the WSOP might get into bed with one another. I still think they kind of are, but I think maybe what the case is here, and this is just, again, more speculation on my part, is that GGPoker hasn't gotten into the US market as easily or as fast as they had hoped. That probably left WSOP in a little bit of a predicament. Like, look, we can't wait forever. We have to ensure our site. And so to do that, they re-upped with 888 through at least 2026, which kind of kicks the can down the road a little bit if indeed they are hoping to link up with GGPoker. One of the issues I see, and this would have been the case with GGPoker, because right now GGPoker doesn't offer mixed games, right? That was a big qualm with a lot of players during the bracelet events last summer. They were all no limit or Omaha events, and 888 right now on WSOP.com isn't offering mixed events either, just Omaha and no limit hold'em. And I think if the WSOP and 888 are going to work together through 2026, which is now the case, they need to address that. They need to take this software that has been a little bit antiquated and update it more. 888 has been doing that with their own software worldwide. They've done some rebranding. They're really making a push, and hopefully we can see that with WSOP.com, especially if they're going into Pennsylvania and Michigan, which I believe is the plan. And look, we've all known WSOP.com has not been the greatest site over the years. It's sufficed, but it could be huge if marketed right. If the software was improved, it could become a major player in the online space. But right now, that in the US, that seems to belong to PokerStars and Party Poker, which just advanced in Michigan and is slated to enter Pennsylvania here soon. So I would like to see WSOP and 888 really make a bigger push in the US and just not be stagnant. Really, yeah. I just feel like they've plateaued and haven't made any improvements in a long while. So hopefully they do.
I agree 100%. This summer is big for WSOP. Our friends at Poker Fuse say that WSOP's dream scenario, it sounds like, is to get, like Chad said, Pennsylvania and Michigan on board. They join Nevada and New Jersey for some World Series of Poker online bracelet events. They have this new software that they did implement, to Chad's point, overseas. That new software should be implemented in Pennsylvania, Nevada, et cetera, by the time these World Series of Poker online events start. I have no idea when those are planned for. A key feature of that software is that now you can have multi-flight events, you can have multi-day events. They pulled it off kind of sort of with the main. It was a little bit shaky on this antiquated platform, but I think they absolutely need this Poker 8 software in place in the US before World Series of Poker online bracelet events begin.
Well, we've got a couple of more stories that I think it's important that we get to before we let you guys go, but I would like to, Chad, find out what went down with you and Jared, or is that happening later?
Look, I haven't interviewed him yet as we're recording this part of the podcast. It is going to happen. It took a little bit of convincing on my part. Jared Jaffee has not been the biggest fan of poker media to certain aspects, but I think he's all right with Poker News and with me. And so it's happening. He confirmed with me yesterday, and he said, all right, I just wanted to confirm and quote, "Don't come at me with that weak shit. Let's ruffle some feathers." And I said, all right, we're going to do it. And he said, okay, cool. I want to offend the people who deserve to be offended. So I'm anticipating this is going to be a great interview. It hasn't happened yet. You're about to hear it, though. Here is the result of my interview with Jared Jaffee. All right, I am with our guest this week, Jared Jaffee. We've been talking about him on the Poker News Podcast for several weeks, been on a little bit of a heater. Let's just start right there, Jared. Congrats on winning that online ring recently.
Thanks, appreciate it.
What's life like for you right now? I know that I was talking to, I think it was Ralph Massey or Aaron, you're friends with the Massey brothers. They said that you were, during the pandemic, kind of staying in, not coming out to play much poker. Was that accurate?
Yeah, no, I didn't play really any live poker at all, except I played in December. I played like 3 or 4 of those win 10Ks because they were kind of like isolated and didn't have many players in them. But other than that, I basically didn't play live poker until the Venetian WPT. But now I got both doses of the vaccine now, so I'm pretty much back and ready to go.
I mean, you're off to a good start. Like I said, you won the ring online. You went deep in that WPT Venetian, and we'll talk about that. There's an article on Poker News, the Muck, about it. A little controversy as you guys were nearing the final table, where because of the COVID protocols, they didn't go to an 8-handed final table, even though it was played 8-handed throughout. I actually played that event. You get down there and they say, no, you're going, what was it? You're going to play 4 and 4 until it gets to 7.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, one important thing that I wanted to get out about all this, like, and now that I could actually speak and not just tweet or whatever, like, okay, so first of all, they come up to us when there's 10 players remaining and very, very quietly just kind of say, hey guys, just so you know, when we get down to 8, we're going to be going to 2 tables of 4. Now, as soon as they said that, everyone just kind of looked at them like, wait, what do you mean? Why would we do that? Okay. When they told us this, I was about 3 of 10 in chips. Okay. So it would not have been a detriment to me at that stage of the tournament to have gone 4 and 4. I was not the short stack. But I immediately voiced that this was like a huge problem and it shouldn't be done this way. Along with every other player in the tournament, 10 out of 10 players were against it. So it's important to know that I was literally creating a stink about this from that very moment. Okay. Not later on when we happened to get 8-handed, I was 8 of 8, but I was 3 of 10 when this was told to us, and I was upset about it from the jump. So Savage had tweeted out that we weren't going to change the rules just for one short stack player, which was trying to mislead people into making it look like I had sour grapes about it because I was short stack. But he completely knew that I started voicing my complaints about this when I was not the short stack, and he was just misleading people. So that's first of all. Second of all, they talked about how they said there would be a redraw, and I think it was 24 and then 16 and then 7 on the structure sheet. First of all, they didn't come up to everyone with 17 or 18 people left and tell them, listen, we're going to do a redraw at 16, or with 30 people left and say, we're going to do a redraw at 24, because it's understood. They specifically came up to us with 10 people left to let us know that we were doing a redraw at 8. Because it was so much of a deviation from the norm. Also, it's said on the structure sheet that those would be the redraws. But it also said on the structure sheet that this was an 8-handed tournament and would play 8-handed until the final table of 6. So as clear as it was that there would be a redraw at 7, it was also clear that this was an 8-handed tournament all the way to a final table of 6. So it certainly wasn't black and white. Okay. And another black and white issue, for example, just to show how it's the whole, this was in the rules and this is the structure sheet, et cetera, and we go by this. It also said on the structure sheet that day 1 would play 10 levels, okay? And re-entry would close after those 10 levels. They, with a level left in day one, extended and added another level to the tournament on day 1, which meant that everyone who busted in the final level on day 1 should have bagged and been on to day 2, and now they were going to have to put in extra bullets in that tournament. That was a huge deviation from the structure sheet, and they did it in what they said was the best interest of the tournament. So that was far more of a black and white issue, and they changed the structure in that situation, which cost several people the opportunity to bag on 1 bullet or 2 bullets, and then had to put another $5,000 in the tournament. But that was okay. But when you have a situation where clearly it wasn't black and white, and you have everyone in the tournament saying they want to do it one way, which would have been the normal way, then all of a sudden, listen, we can't deviate from the structure sheet, which wasn't even clear to begin with.
Right.
So it was just, as usual, it was just the higher ups trying to cover for themselves, not caring about the players. I mean, if this is your flagship tournament and you're the Venetian, how is there not one decision maker in the room? If you're Matt Savage and you're making these rules and you're pounding your chest saying, this is how it's going to be, how are you not in the building? How are you tweeting that you're watching Sopranos on the couch with your wife when this is all going on, and you won't talk to any of the players, and you live 15 minutes away and you won't come down there? whatever the decision was, the decision was. But there's no excuse for the way it was handled. And there's no excuse, once again, for the people who are instrumental in making the rules and the decisions for various poker tours not being held accountable for their actions and their lack of caring for the players that pay their salaries. And that's what it's more about, because this isn't a one-time deal. Things like this happen all the time and no one's ever held accountable. And that's what it's all about. There should be accountability.
How do you feel that they could be held accountable? You know, is this a players just boycott certain things or not play? Or I mean, what's the answer?
Obviously the problem is that there's only so many poker tours and there's only so many opportunities to play. So players aren't going to miss the opportunity to play these events.
Right.
And this is why they kind of have this power where we can't do anything about it. But listen, I spoke to the higher ups at the WPT and whatever, and there is a way to hold them accountable. Like, listen, if you don't do your job, you shouldn't have a job. That's the bottom line. Like, let me ask you a question. If you worked at if you were the owner of a restaurant and it was New Year's Eve, like the biggest day of your restaurant, and your manager didn't show up to the restaurant that day, and then there was a problem at the restaurant and you called him and he couldn't be bothered to get off his couch to come by and handle it, would he have a job the next day? In what profession on like the most important day of your company's year, you know, this is the Venetian's #1 tournament of the year. This WPT has what, 10 or 12 main events a year. This one's in Vegas where everyone lives. In what other profession can you just not show up, have a problem, not come and deal with it, and then you have a job the next day? You would be fired in basically any other profession. So people just need to voice their concerns, and people need to put pressure on the higher ups to make people do their jobs. And I'll give you another example. Like, some people said, like, the way I went about it on Twitter was wrong and this and that because I was so fired up. Let me tell you something. The first time that they did a tournament like this was in Florida a month earlier.
Right.
And guess what? Players who were there voiced that they weren't happy about it, and everyone ignored them. And nobody made a big stink about it, but everybody said it while they were at the tournament and nothing happened. And guess what? I went on Twitter and I screamed about it, and I'm pretty sure we're not having 4-4 at the next WPT, are we? So yeah. For everybody who's like, oh, you know, you should be much more polite and you should be more diplomatic about it, that doesn't work in this industry. Nobody gives a shit unless you hold their feet to the fire. Yeah, it's proven. It's literally, this is case in point. And if everyone want to say that I was out of line, whatever, you know what? Maybe I was, but I don't think I was. I don't regret it at all. And you could thank me because the rules are changed now. So.
Right. No, and you have what a lot of other players don't is a platform of sorts in the poker world. You know, you're very accomplished with World Poker Tour title, with the WSOP title. You've been around the game for a long time, so a lot of people know you. You do have that platform, whereas maybe some other players wouldn't. You know, they complain, but it's like talking into thin air. Whereas people actually listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, the other thing is, like, I've always said that I thought the WPT was the best run tour of all the tours that there are in poker. I've said it on Twitter. I've said it in interviews. I've complimented them a million times. And when you compliment them, they come back to you and they thank you and they shake your hand and they tell you how much they like you and yada, yada. But you know what? If you compliment somebody 100% of the time, okay, how seriously can you be taken? If I throw out 90 compliments and then 5 times I have a complaint, that's credibility. Like, when people do things right, you should give them credit. When people do things wrong, they should be held accountable. So don't sit there and take all my kind words and, you know, retweet them and tell everybody, well, you know, this guy supports our tour all the time. But then when I have a complaint, a valid complaint that's supported by probably, I don't know, 90+% of the poker community, then all of a sudden I'm a bad guy. No, the problem is, like I said, if you don't go about it in this way, nobody listens. And that's the problem. And you know what? I went about it in this way and people listened. And I promise you, if I just sat back behind the scenes and just was like, hey, this isn't cool, I guarantee you nothing would have happened.
Right.
And at least now people are talking about it. And I think going forward, there's a lot of other rules that are bullshit created by Matt Savage because he doesn't care about anyone but himself because he's a superstar. You know, like, how about the never reduce rule? I would love for them to put out a petition to, like, the 500 players who've played the most WPT events in history. And you ask them, if you get to a final table and we're using the big blind ante and there's 5 people left, would you want us to reduce the big blind ante by half? I would be willing to bet anything that like stone minimum 3 out of 4 and probably closer to 8 out of 10 players would say, yeah, I'd like to reduce the big blind ante. But Savage it's literally his pinned tweet, never reduce. First of all, why? Why is he the one who gets to make this? We are paying him. It's his job to make the poker tour what the players want it to be. Why should we be playing for the most amount of money on the biggest stage and then have it become less of a poker game? Why? Why would you do anything that if the overwhelming majority of your customers want it one way, what would be the motivation to do it the other? The only motivation is to make the people who are running the tournament's job easier. Finish it faster, they work less hours, yada, yada, yada. So they're worried about level 1 of a tournament that means nothing, but when it comes to when it really counts, that's when we're going to put our foot down and tell the players that we're going to do whatever the hell we want to do. It's nonsense.
I think you kind of answered one of the questions I was going to ask, and that's your thoughts towards Matt Savage. Have you guys had any chance to converse in person as opposed to just over Twitter or social media?
I mean, we actually, the funny thing about this is me and Savage have had a really good relationship for years. We're friends. Like I've literally gone to hockey games with him. Like we text, whatever. But the problem is he's just very difficult to deal with unless you're on his side. If you disagree with anything that he says, he doesn't want to hear it, and he gets condescending and he gets arrogant, and he thinks that the problem is, listen, you can ask around. He thinks he's the star of the show. He's a tournament director. Like he works for the players. Okay. People do not turn on the WPT to see Matt Savage with a microphone. They turn it on to see the players playing poker.
Right.
Okay. And he needs to understand that this isn't a reality TV show where he's the star, and he doesn't want to hear that. And it's unfortunate because, like I've said many times in interviews before, poker is literally the only industry in the world where your customers are willing to do your job for you. Literally, poker players will write the structures for you. Poker players will tell you what they want. Poker players will take time out of their day to improve structures and to come up with ideas on how to make tournaments better and whatever. That doesn't happen anywhere else. So it's so asinine and absurd when the people who have the power and who are making these decisions don't listen to the players who are trying to help them and to make their job easier. And it's just a power trip. And like, we need to get to the point. It's not just WPT and Matt Savage. It's the WSOP. It's the Venetian. It's the Bellagio. It's everywhere, where we need to understand that this is about the players and this is about growing the game. And this isn't about somebody in a suit pounding their chest saying, I make the rules. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what it's about. It shouldn't be about that. And, you know, if I had to be the one to step up and say it, then that's fine.
Do you think there's any credence or possibility, and this has been bantered about for years, about some sort of players union in poker? Do you think something like that could possibly ever exist to help exert a little pressure or influence to a WPT or to a WSOP or anywhere for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it could, I think that I think we should have had one of these a long time ago. The problem is just, how to go about it and how exactly will it. Like, it's the same thing you said earlier, like with boycotting tournaments, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, in order for it to have any power, it needs to be able to exert its influence in a way. Right. And how are we going to do that? Like, say you have a group of 30 respected players who form this committee or whatever, and they put all their grievances forward and they put all their ideas forward, and then nobody listens. Then what?
Right.
We're still in the same situation. So what you would need is these different poker tours to basically work together in a way where they come out and say, listen, we're going to work with this committee, and we're going to, if they have a vote on something and it's 80%, we're going to auto enact what it is that they voted for. Otherwise, it's just the same thing. It's going to be a bunch of people talking, and then the tours do whatever they want, and then everyone's going to play anyway because there's not really a choice. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place a lot of times.
Sure. Well, let me ask you, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is, you don't hold back. You tell it how it is. We appreciate that here on the Poker News Podcast. And I see it all the time on your Twitter, which I love. There's the tweet you had this year in February. It says, is anyone capable of playing poker without being an attention-seeking, wannabe cool kid anymore? God, it's so embarrassing. What a pussy-ass game poker has become. End scene. And that just got me thinking, like, you've been around the game for a long time. You've had success throughout. What's your thoughts on the state of poker as it exists right now in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of it is just the nature of society now, where everyone's like, has their social media presence and they're trying to build a brand, and with Instagram and with OnlyFans and all this nonsense. Like, that's kind of how the world is right now. Obviously, like, I'm a little bit older, and like, that's just not, how I think of things. Like, I get it. People are in this to make money. If they think they can brand themselves and make money, through, tweeting nonstop about their accomplishments and whatever, sure, I get it. But there's only a small subset of people in poker who are really doing that, who are like really making money off their brand anyway. What I think is ridiculous is just these people who are just pounding their chest about how good they are and how they'll challenge anyone and this and that. Like, it's so clownish. Like, people brag about how much money they're making. Like, I was talking about this with last night. I went to dinner with Aaron and Ralph and Ronnie, and we were talking. I was like, in what other profession does this exist? Like, can you imagine some doctor like going on Twitter and tweeting about how much money they made off of a surgery they made yesterday? Or like in any profession, it's so obnoxious how everyone is so like out there about how much money they're making and how much crypto they have and bragging about who they beat and whatever. Like, it's absurd. Like, it doesn't exist in any other platform. Like no other career is it like, can you imagine like why not just go show up to tournaments and print out your Hendon mob and your crypto assets and just hand it out to everyone at the table? Like, it's the same fucking difference. It's absurd. Like, why can't people just go about their business and, play poker and win? And if other people want to talk about them, great. But just to constantly be beating on your chest and telling everyone how good you are and how much everyone else stinks. Like, let me tell you something. Like, almost everybody stinks. Like, there's like a few good players who are really good, and then everyone else is just jumbled in the middle. And like, if you can make a profession out of it and live a good life, that's great. And if you can't, you should probably find another career. But like, to have to sit there and like tell everyone like of every accomplishment. I mean, these people literally are like, they're like telling everyone about hands they win in level 1 and level 2 and how many chips they have on the second break of day 1 of the tournament where you can re-enter for 20 more levels. Like, no one cares.
Let me ask you, who does Jared Jaffee think is somebody that's good for poker right now? Not necessarily a good poker player skill-wise, just somebody who you think is an asset to our industry.
Wow, Jesus Christ! Somebody who's good for poker.
I was going to ask some. I could ask the flip side of that too. Who are some people that you think are not great for poker or a detriment to the industry as well?
Well, I think, like I said, I mean, I'm not even going to like really name names. I mean, you know who I'm talking. Anybody who's just constantly like, over self-promoting and like talking about their greatness all the time is just a clown to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all these training sites, like these people have training sites and they can't even beat the game. There are so many people in training sites who literally are losing players, and they're taking people's money out of their pockets to teach them how to play poker when they can't even win themselves. That's bad for the game. I mean, it's good for the game in a sense that like, we're teaching people how to play bad and whatever, I guess, but it's bad in that you're literally like stealing people's money, like representing like you're good. Like, if you're literally like running a training site where you literally play losing poker and it's not even on your own dime, then to me, that's ridiculous. Like, There's nothing wrong with getting staked or backed or whatever. That's fine. But to promote like you're some big winning player and you don't win and you don't even use your own money, like, you shouldn't be charging people to learn how to play poker. I mean, who's good for poker? I'm not going to say like a specific person, but like people who are good for poker are just people who like are going out there and like making the game fun for like other players, like live. But I'm talking about like really doing it, like not somebody who's sitting there with a camera in his face, like running a vlog while they're playing, like promoting themselves.
Sure.
That's not good for poker. I'm talking about somebody who sits at the table and people enjoy playing with them. And, obviously everybody wants to win, but like, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the people who sit there with their headphones on. Obviously it's different now with, COVID, whatever, but like people who sit there and stare and like try to be intimidating and whatever, it's a joke. You're not intimidating anyone. Like those people are bad for poker. People who sit there and like, chat it up with amateur players and like have a good time at the table and make people's experience better. And I'm going to be the first one to say, I'm not always like that. Sometimes I'm salty at the table and I'm miserable to play with, but I would say that's probably like 10 or 15% of the time.
Sure.
And probably like 80% of the time I'm friendly and have a good time. So I think overall I influence poker in a better way than in a negative way. Not everyone's gonna have a good day all the time. That's understandable, but like, just do it for the right reasons. Don't be fake, because, most people could see through it,
Well, I would never accuse you of being fake, especially after, and this is something I wanted to talk about. I enjoyed them. You and Ralph were doing these episodes called Cold Cuts, where they were on YouTube. I don't know how many episodes there are out. I've watched 2 of them for sure.
Yeah, we only did 2 because then Ralph went out of town for like a month and it like screwed up the scheduling. And then since he's been back, we've both started playing a little bit more. We're gonna do another one soon. We already have the premise for the 3rd one. We just haven't gotten around to doing it, but it'll be done. But yeah, we've only done the 2 so far.
For those who don't know, it's you and Ralph basically over a tray of cold cuts, enjoying, the meal, the alcohol, and just chatting about anything and everything. And some of it is, not safe for work stuff.
Yeah,
but
I'd say most of it isn't safe for work. I mean, there's no poker. We haven't discussed any poker. It's basically just about life, mostly about like, adult stuff, mostly sex related and whatnot. It's fun. It's literally like, it's things that we would talk about if we were just hanging out,
right,
by ourselves, and we just really aren't ashamed or embarrassed, and we don't care, and we'll tell it to everyone. And I think, the majority of people who watched it thought it was pretty entertaining. I'm sure some people thought it was just a little over the top, but that's just kind of how it is. But that's the point. Like, but that's the difference. Like, we're just being real. We're literally not acting. When we shoot those things, there are no second takes. We put on the camera and we just talk, and that's it. And, I think that type of genuine personality, that type of just off the cuff, is more what we're missing in poker, instead of everybody, like, even when people tweet, like when I send out a tweet that people laugh at, I swear to you, like, I construct it in like 3 seconds. Like, look at when somebody calls me out and my response time to them, it's within a minute, like every time. Whereas it's so obvious that these other people sit there and like write 27 drafts and, go to the thesaurus and the dictionary and look for everyone, trying to look smart, trying to be funny, whatever, craft the perfect tweet. Like, it's so not genuine, and it's so like obvious. Like, when I say something, it's the first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm not sugarcoating it. And that's just the way, like, I'm telling you, the world's better that way. Poker will be better that way. Everything will be more enjoyable that way. Like, everybody needs to stop worrying so much about their image and just try to be like actually who they are. And I think that'd be a good start.
Your Twitter game is spot on. I know I get lots of laughs. It's at Jared Jaffee 21 for those who are listening that might want to follow you. Jared, before I let you go, this is a platform. I told you when we were texting back and forth that we can get into anything or anything. Is there anything with it you want to talk about, or you want to, throw out there before I let you go?
I mean, I think I've said a lot, yeah, I mean, if anybody has a question or anything that I think on any type of specific situation, you ask me, I'll give you an answer. Somebody wants to holler at me on Twitter and see how I feel about something, I'll give them a genuine answer. Like I said, I think that I've played poker now full time for, I don't even know now, 12, 13 years plus, where I've been traveling around, something like that. And I love poker. I love the industry as a whole. I'm happy doing this. It's what I've wanted to do pretty much forever. I just wish that I I wish that poker would maybe like go, I think it's getting a little too far this way, and we need to come back a little bit towards what it once was. Like, you know, obviously the game evolves, whatever, and personalities evolve, but I do think that, you know, it would be better for everyone and the game as a whole if everyone just kind of took a step back and looked at like why they got into poker and like what poker was like when they first got into it. And there was something cool about it. And I feel like now they're like, if I was looking at poker, like if I was like 18, 19, 20 and looking at like what poker looks like now, I'm not 100% sure I would look at it that way. And I think people need to realize that if you want to stay in this industry for a while, you might want to do a little bit better job of representing what it is that draws people. And it's probably not, you know, heads up challenges and, you know, solver charts, wars, you know, that's just probably not what's going to bring people to the table, at least not the right people.
Right. Well, Jared, I appreciate your take on everything. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us here at Poker News. And like I said to the listeners, follow Jared on Twitter at JaredJaffee21. Thanks again, man. We really appreciate it.
No problem. My pleasure.
Well, we don't actually, as we record this, know what Mr. Jaffee said, but we're just going to go with, I hope he ruffled as many feathers as he was hoping to. And, you know, I think that the Poker News podcast has had a lot of iterations over the years, you know, as is, I think, the case with any, you know, long form of media with different hosts and different whatevers. And if there's anything that I would like to be thought of or remembered as in hosting this podcast, it's that we do let people say what they think, and that we are not afraid to, you know, sometimes say things that maybe other people don't like, because it's okay. And I don't care if people say things that I don't like. I promise you, it happens all the time. And actually, that's interesting. I do think that, oh my gosh, that's adorable, Chad.
That's awesome.
That the poker media often gets painted with kind of a wide brush, and it is a very small community overall. And I actually was going to ask Jeff, because you just like threw this out really quickly. You're like, oh yeah, our friends at Poker Fuse. Who the F is at Poker Fuse? Because I don't know if they're my friend.
I know, Sarah, that you might not be reading much of the Poker Fuse.
No, I actually do go to their site a lot. I think they have a lot of good stuff, but I don't, that's competition then, right? And like they steal some of our stories.
Do they though? Yeah. Do you, like, Chad, do you guys consider in the written world Poker Fuse to be direct competition? I feel like they take a little bit of a different route, maybe a more business centered route.
I don't view too many people as competition, not in the sense that we're so much better or something like that. Yeah. And then I just have this mentality in the poker world that a rising tide raises all ships, right? So do your thing, we'll do ours. Everybody will benefit in the end. And yeah, Poker Fuse does great work in my opinion. I guess they're competition per se, but I just think of them as colleagues, or as Jeff would say, our friends.
Friends. Okay. Well, maybe I don't even really know who they are. There are lots of people in the poker world, for example, who just take our videos and just put them on their own YouTube pages and stuff. I don't think Poker Fuse is one of them, but there are a lot. And so I like to be careful who I just say, like, oh, those are my friends. They're not necessarily my enemies, but like, they might not be my friend. All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit because, you know, something we talked a lot about in the debate yesterday is how jealous everyone in Europe is. And of course, I tell them, you know, GFY, because you've been able to play online for the last decade plus. So I'm not really feeling so sorry for you, but everyone in Europe is clearly salivating at all of the live poker that's going on in the United States. And I just would like to give a huge kudos to everyone who's showing up to these, you know, creating these record breaking events that Chad's basically going to all of them. And there, do you want to, Jeff, talk about this, what went down in Jacksonville? Florida's popping off for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's just huge, whether it's Best Bet Jacksonville or Seminole Hard Rock or Seminole Tampa. I mean, Florida is just absolutely on fire. So 401 entries for the Best Bet Jacksonville Spring Series main event, creating a prize pool of almost $1 million. How Rotholz comes out on top, winning almost $181K. Kyle Cartwright in the mix, finished in third for almost $89,000. So there it is, just another big turnout, another big prize pool. this is just the case really across the entire U.S. I mean, every room is just getting massive fields. Chad said it, the Riverside stop for the MSPT set a state record for Iowa, and coming off a global pandemic. This is pretty absurd and pretty awesome.
And that was 862 entries, massive turnout. Dan Sepiel took it down for $162,000. He's a young Midwest grinder. I've known him for many years. I actually played with him on day 2 on his way to victory. He played great. He beat Jason Cruz heads up. Jason Cruz is the one who eliminated me in 27th place. So I'm glad he used those chips to go deep and have $100,000 score himself. And just incredible. And kind of England, she finished in 3rd place for $73,000. She's out of the Chicagoland area. Been grinding a lot. Finally got herself a big score. So congratulations all around there. And then also over in New Jersey, there was another Party Poker US online series that wrapped up. And congratulations to Katie Stone. She ended up finishing runner-up in the main event. It was $1,060 buy-in main event, 2-day event. She finished 2nd place for $61,000 to somebody we don't know. The screen name was Syracuse 03. $83,000 up top. So a big online tournament there in New Jersey. The Party Poker US Network online series also saw players like Drew O'Connell, who we just talked about winning in the WSOP circuit ring. He took down one of the titles, as did WSOP bracelet winner Daniel Lupo. And I have it on good authority that Party Poker US will be hosting their first online network series in Michigan this month in April. So very excited about that. Players should get excited about it, and Poker News will be doing live updates, so that's something to look forward to.
Well, Katie, I've talked to her actually. We had lunch a couple months ago, and she told me that she's really been working on her game. She has a couple of these East Coast grinders that are super sickos, who she's been talking hands with, and it's good to see a poker mom out there shipping that money. As a poker mom myself, I just like to see that go down. Also, Chad, I almost sent you a text because Katie texted me on International Women's Day or whatever it's called. And she said, the coverage on Poker News for International Women's Day was so good. You guys really nailed it. Way to go. And, I just responded, not at all. I did not respond, but I thought you would be happy to know that we got the very, very difficult stamp of approval from the woman for International Women's Day.
Hey, look, Katie's been great. She's a Borgata Poker ambassador. She does a lot for the New Jersey poker scene. She's helped Poker News a lot in our coverage over the last year or so, and just learning some of these New Jersey screen names and associating them with real players. That really helps us improve the coverage, and she was instrumental in that. She does a lot for women in poker, as you say. Remember the Grindettes? She was part of the Grindettes. I think Jamie Kerstetter was part of that, and some others. And then also when the pandemic first hit, she started a Discord channel where affected players from the industry, whether they're dealers or what have you, could go in and just try to network or find opportunities or seek out help. And I thought that whole initiative was very kind of her, something she didn't have to do, but a testament to the type of person she is. And like I said, happy to see her get this big score, especially if, like you said, she's been working on her game. It's certainly paying off.
Well, we appreciate you guys, of course, listening to the show per the usual. Be sure to check out the Poker News debate from yesterday. I'm sure you guys will be checking out the Heads Up with Daniel and Phil, which I am very much looking forward to talking about next week. And let us know if you guys have ideas for shows, if you guys have ideas for guests. Also, if you have ideas for debates you'd like to see happen or that you would want to participate in or be some part of, be sure to let us know. It's at Chad A is an asshole Holloway, Sarah at Auntie Chardonnay, AUNTY Chardonnay, and Jeff Platt on the Twitter. So hit us up if you love the podcast. If you leave us a nice review, we will of course greatly appreciate that. Might even read it on the show if it's clever, or even if it just says something really specifically nice about me. And Jeff will be just waiting, anticipating the results of your body fat scan next
I'm
week.
sure that was the headline from this show. Everybody's just so fascinated by this. It'd be great.
I actually really want to know. Like, I'm pretty sure when it comes to that, it's going to be really impressive. Like, are you skinny fat or just skinny? Let me know.
I hope you lose weight. Just room for one big man on this show.
Jeff, who's this bet against?
It's against my friend in Dallas, and we started it back in 2020, in October of 2020. So we check in at the quarterly mark, so end of 2020 and then end of March, and we'll check in the summer, and then it'll be done December or October 31st of this year.
Is he fat? Is he fat?
No, he's not fat. I was certainly behind at the beginning.
Your friend in Dallas, is it Dax Prescott?
Yes. The Cowboys, the Mavs, Luca's involved in the bet. Just good friends with all of them.
That joke went right over my head, obviously.
Sarah, do you know, you live in Texas, do you know who Dax Prescott is?
No.
Quarterback.
No. And it's funny because when you don't know who sports people are, people say that you're dumb. And I just laugh at that because I don't watch sports. I must be dumb.
Yeah.
How dumb I am. Anyways, okay. It's been a great pleasure, you guys. Enjoy your lives. We will catch you guys on the flip side. Deuces.
Run It Once is a brand new online poker site founded by poker superstar Phil Galfond, who has the player's experience at heart. Run It Once plans to make online poker fun and less predatory while providing ample rewards and innovative features at the same time. All new Run It Once players who download the software via PokerNews are entitled to a 100% deposit bonus worth up to €600. What makes this welcome bonus unique is that you can make as many deposits as you like for that first 30 days after your first deposit. This makes it perfect for those players who do not want to or cannot deposit $600 in one chunk. Be sure to check it out at once.run/pnpod. That's once.run/pnpod.